Okay, recording in progress. I'll accept that.
Yeah, we're into it. We are here. So welcome everyone for this episode. Nice to have you along with us. And today I'm very blessed to have a brother with me, Craig. We met. I'd like to just share a bit how we connected. Yeah, we met at a Mind Body Spirit Fest only 2 weeks ago, was it? 3 weeks
Yeah,
ago?
yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
2 weeks ago. Yeah, wow. And that was really beautiful because we didn't know anything about each other and we ended up sharing a table just to have a bite to eat and things happened from there.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of
Yeah.
like in the biblical sense, sharing the bread, brother. And that's how we were. We were sharing the bread, so it's all good. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and it's always more than just sharing a bread, isn't it? Or a cup of tea often turns out to be more than just a cup of tea.
yeah, absolutely. In this case, it certainly did. Yeah,
And so yeah, we both do energy work and we had something to collaborate and I've done a healing with you which was powerful. I really felt a lot of energy move through me and shift, and I had a lot more ease from that. So yeah, that was really special, and you purchased one of my light language drawings and that resonated with you, and yeah, here we are now on this podcast for you to
yeah,
share more of yourself and beautiful gifts.
yeah. No, sure. Yeah, very, very blessed to have the gifts that I do have. I wasn't sort of aware of them. They came to me at a later time. So it's in this volume down here. Yeah, kind of later in life. I obviously have kind of always had these gifts, but they weren't there. They were pushed down, I guess, through the normal thing of life and us people in general, but males in particular. You got to study, you got to learn, school, study something, do a trade, whatever it may be. Earn money, get married, have kids, do all that normal stuff, which I did. Went down all that path of what's expected of us in the third dimensional sense, and then had some challenges in my life at some point, and then ended up a little bit more of a spiritual path. Went for some Reiki healing myself because I'd had some, difficulties myself and was just trying to learn how to deal with it myself. And went on this Reiki course and started to see things in people which I knew just weren't possible. So for me, it was obviously there, and it's the timing of things. You're talking about how we met. We just happened to be in the table you were sitting at, were some chairs available, and a friend of mine, Pauline, that I was with, and her and I just went and sat there, and that's how we connected. So it's that, and I've really had to learn the timing of things, and really just trusting spirit with timing. And I said that was just the right time for me to connect to my gifts. And when they opened up, they really just opened up kind of straight away. And I started working with horses initially because I used to breed with native Appaloosa spotted horses back in South Africa. So I worked on horses, run my hands over them, always stop in a place in the right place. And that's sort of where I built up my confidence to realize, oh, this is actually a gift that I have, and I can really use it to help people. I started helping the horses. Then a ride would fall off, bump their head, this, that, whatever. I'd work on them. And that's how I kind of progressed. Then I came to New Zealand coming up sort of 8, 9 years ago. And I've really just developed it here, more connected with some Maori healers here and a lot of beautiful, beautiful souls and beautiful healers here. And my gift has just grown, and I feel like I'm blessed to have really, really amazing gifts. And I'm no different to anybody else. I've just managed to connect to mine. That's all. We're all able to do it. Mine just came at a time when it was needed. But I realized that even though I've had these amazing, amazing healings and amazing gifts that I have, this time at the moment, things are coming and changing so quickly. And we are really heading towards, we use the terminology of fifth dimension, uh, beyond what we could have thought about probably 5 years ago. We would have thought of a spiritualness, but now it's kind of like we can almost touch this fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it, this other realm. It's really come a lot closer to us. And I feel for me, and probably for many, many people out there, it doesn't matter whether you've done healing, had any gifts of any sort at all, it can come to you, boom, just like that. I feel like I'm just at the tip of the iceberg. And I know what I'm doing at the moment is amazing. As you know, you've had a healing, you can feel my energy is really powerful. And I'm just at the tip of the iceberg. what I'm still going to be able to do in the not too distant future, when we really just tap into this new fifth dimensional energy, is going to be, it's going to blow my mind, you know. And I'm just one person, and there are many of us, all light workers all around the world, you know. So we are really blessed to be in this time of huge change, you know.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And it's so much. The veil's lifted, as they say, and I mean, there's many ways we can describe it. And yeah, more and more people are becoming more conscious, and each one that does that adds to the field and makes it more accessible for others. And like you say, 25 years ago, yeah, that we wouldn't have even known it's going to be like this. And I think we won't, we have no idea what it's going to be like in 25 years' time from now. When you say you're on the tip of the iceberg, where you are, knowing that your gifts are so strong, yet it's going to be enhanced or you're going to develop more. Do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, you know, I've been very fortunate to have a number of different gifts, if I can put it that way. And one of them is kind of the gift of prophecy. So I've had a number of prophecies, and some of them have come to pass already. But for myself, I've had an inner knowing. So I have an inner knowing. I know that I will heal thousands of people at a time. That inner knowing has been with me for a very long time. And what I've got to now in the shift from where we would have been 25 years ago, where I don't try and figure out what that means or how I need to do it. Because that's the normal thing of how we were taught us as kids. You go to school, you learn this, so that you then set yourself up as it's like a business plan, you know, short-term plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, a plan of where you need to get to. And I've learned to let go of that completely. Spirit knows how get, then things will come about. And as you just mentioned just now, if I set a 1-year plan, by the time I get to that 1 year, things may have changed so much that that plan would seem like it came out of the dark ages, you know. They're just, things are changing so quickly. So I've had that inner knowing within myself. I've had people prophesy to me all in different parts of the world from a long time back. People said, I see you walking into a hall with thousands of people, and literally before you walk in, people will be healed. And that's not about me. Any one of us can do that. We're all going to do that in different ways. Each one of us will be, and it might be the monk sitting quietly on a mountain somewhere, maybe healing thousands of people at a time without saying a single word, without anybody knowing. So it's not, this is just my journey that I sense I may be on myself, you know. So I see that being where I would heal people all around the world. And 5 years ago, or 7, 8 years ago, I thought that meant I'd have to go to a hall somewhere, you know, and be sitting in a hall and there'd be 1,000 people. Now I realize with this, the Zoom and the stuff we're doing, that could be 1 million people all around the world, with me sitting here completely on my own, as you sitting on your own where you are, you know, and the two of us could be having one of these sort of interactions and be connected to 1 million people. So things have changed already from my perception of I need to hire a hall somewhere and get 100 people in and do healing for all of them, whatever. That's already changed. So I kind of know that I'll heal thousands of people. Also very strongly connected to extraterrestrial energy. I think we may have spoken about it fleetingly. I don't know. But I know that I will take people up to, and they talk about med beds here, that they're coming. I'm not sure in my own guidance that is something that's going to come here in the near future. But I sense that we would have access to that through spaceships and other around here. So we will be able to transport ourselves there, or me as a healer, or you as a guide, whatever it may be, take people to a place and they will get healing there in med beds, but not necessarily physically on this earth. So I've seen that. It's kind of being in a spaceship and healing 100,000 people at a time. So I'm a dreamer, I guess you would say, you know. So and I have a very vivid imagination, and I allow that just to flow. It's okay, and none of that may come about. But if in between that I heal one person, it's been worth me having wild dreams, you know. So
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, maybe you're a dreamer, or maybe also you're a visionary,
yeah, absolutely.
you
I
know?
know I am. I look at things now. There's some things I can say now And I know you can write it down. I know it's going to happen. So a few things, a few prophecies that I've had. One was an early 2020s or 20 quite some time ago, 2020. I had this thing that 2020 was going to be a big year. There's going to be like a massive shift in things, and of course we all know what happened in 2020. And sort of I'd say at least 5-6 years before that, I had that feeling 2020. I also then had the feeling that sort of prophecy is such that 2025 would be a massive shift and a bringing out of a lot of darkness into the light. And I think we're starting to see that all around the world. People are now, people have never really been involved in politics. They just vote people into power and let them carry on and do whatever they want, And I think we all know that not many of them have been looking after our interests. They've certainly been looking after their own, and that's through all time. It's always been like that's never been any different. But it's getting to now where people are becoming more aware that they need to be bringing about the change themselves, So I had the prophecy 2025 would be, be a tumultuous year, which it is, but that's a good thing. And then my other prophecy I've had is in 2030, the light will be here in 2030. And that I had a long time ago. 2030 is when the light will be here. And that doesn't mean that we'll have complete peace on earth, but it'll be where those of us like us, light workers, we like to call ourselves, whatever, we will have had enough influence that there'll be no road back. It'll be where those politicians won't be able to do what they have done in the past. By 2030, we will have put something in place where we cannot go back into the darkness that we've come through, and it may take 50 years to bring about complete peace on earth and harmony for everybody, because there's a lot of people on earth and some are really poor infrastructures, and some. I come from South Africa, and Africa is a continent that has a lot of really poor people and not always the best infrastructures, and so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But my prophecy is at 2030, and it's not my prophecy. I'm just blessed to have my Native American guide that just reads a story for me that's up in the heavens, for want of a better word. That same book may have been read to another thousands of people all over the world, and over time, Native Americans, Maoris here, African people, indigenous people all over the world have spoken about this time, the Hopi Native Americans in particular, their prophecy rock. It's gone past the point of the Third World War. That line's gone, the light's coming, nothing can stop it. So they're not my prophecies. I'm just being read or given a story from my guide who's on the other side of the veil that you spoke about earlier, and giving me some information, And one of the interesting ones was in 2020 or whatever it was, when the previous American elections, I got the prophecy from my guide that Trump would be re-elected. And of course, when that didn't happen in 2020, I thought, I was wrong. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just, it was a prophecy. My guide said to me, he will be president again. Of course, in my third dimensional mind, I thought that meant that election at that time. 4 years later, when he ran again, my guide said, mate, I told you he was going to be president again. I said, I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just I had that knowing. I was given that information that he would come back as he would be president again. So I get that kind of information, and the guidance that I'm getting and information I'm getting is all positive. We have a lot of people that are really worried about where we're going, and the darkness is so powerful. Right. The darkness has no power over us with the light in any way whatsoever. There's absolutely nothing for us to worry about at all. There are wars, innocent people are dying. It's part of the, what we need to go through to purge ourselves of that darkness to bring about the light. But we are in for the greatest times, and things are going to come quickly. And I've had a feeling this last while that something big is going to come quite soon. I call it a prophecy or a knowing or whatever. There's something, a disclosure or something that's going to just shake the world a little bit.
What do you call soon?
Well, that's the other thing we have to do. You got to. We went to that Mind Body Spirit Expo in Whangarei, and I've been and done healings there a lot. I just had some healings on the weekend myself elsewhere, so I didn't go. But there are readers there. People that read cards, fortune tellers, whatever you want to call them. There are quite a few of them, and they are always fully booked. right through the weekend. Everybody wants to know, when am I going to need a new partner? What's happening with my job? When I'm going to make more money? This, that. Those guys are always busy. And I've learned through myself, because I do get guidance around that sometimes, is that time is, you can't predict times and things. When spirit
No.
says something's going to happen, I've learned, and I've had to learn patience myself. Like, I know
Mm,
these things are coming to me. And of course, 10 years ago, when I got this gift, I thought, no, this needs to come next week, 10 years down the line, here I am. I'm still learning. I'm still connecting to people like you, people on this group here. Who knows what we may do together, or just something from here that may help someone and trigger them off to do something. I've had to learn to be patient. Uh,
mm,
and so when you say, when is the time? Sometimes I get things around time, but generally I can say that we just need to be patient. It'll come. If I've had that prophecy, it's going to come. And things change sometimes, because I did have a few years ago, I refer to the word disclosure. They've spoken often about disclosure around extraterrestrials. And I think most of us would know that there's obviously something out there. Some of those guys have come here at some point or other, from thousands to millions of years back. There's all sorts of things around the world that point to that very clearly. Pyramids in every continent of the world, they couldn't possibly be coordinated the way they are by us now, never mind a few thousand years ago. And there was disclosure was going to come, where they were going to try and put fear into us with extraterrestrials, that we all need to fall under one world order. I use that terminology, which they like, and just bow down and bow down to them, because we'd have a threat from outer space extraterrestrials. And that shifted, because that was quite strong a few years ago, 4 years ago. And that, I think, through us bringing in the light and shifting, we've actually changed that timeline and moved that, and that's gone away. I feel like disclosure around that could come out quite soon. That could be what it is, because there are, I think, spaceships or wrecks for spaceships that they have in America, and have these bases wherever they are. That could be it.
hmm.
'Cause that would scare a lot of people.
For sure, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I totally agree that there's been so much work done on bringing in the light and removing the dark forces and what's been put in place and bringing things back into balance and harmony and opening portals and closing portals and
Yeah.
bringing out our beautiful dragons here to support us, which have been, hidden away and locked away and everything. Um, so yeah, I feel like what you're saying it feels true to me as well, that we're really in this place where it's shifting a lot and I feel we already have that momentum where, the dark will not be able to come back in, and yeah, of course we have to go through this journey where things present themselves in the way they do and we're all on different paths and yeah, we just have to realize that there is still going to be suffering because when we've been living so long in these densities, of course, they have to come to the surface. And when they come to the surface, they play out as they play out. So, I feel that's even a more of a call for anyone to start asking questions, to connect, to know you have your vibe tribe around you, to find support in some ways, if you're feeling a certain way, because there's many of us out there that can assist. And I like what you say about the readers, I've had clairvoyant readings and I've even offered them and I'm not someone who gets a reader or would give a reading that says your boyfriend will turn up on April 4th and he looks like this or anything because for me that's so disempowering, and it's not
Yeah.
really what it's about because we're
Yeah.
all a part of it and it's just like us meeting, like from my perspective, I knew to go to that Spirit Fest because of Mandy Horton as a friend that I've met through online and met her for the first time there. And that's really who initiated me to get there. And then when I tuned in, I was like, oh, I'm not coming here for a reading or a healing, okay, but I'm really getting guided to bring my codes with me, my drawings. And as I was walking, felt to have some lunch because it was around lunchtime. And I just got told get it at the expo. not knowing what's even there. But I was like, okay. So then I went there and I walked into the cafe and I looked around and went, okay, but yeah, not now. And I walked out and I came back about 20 minutes later. And that's when I walked in and got
Yeah,
my food. And then I just looked around the room and went, okay, where do I sit? And the empty table was like here. So I sat at the empty table and then, yeah, you and Pauline came over and sat with me, and the rest is history in a
yeah,
sense, you know. But I also feel that there's a part of you in that as well, whether you were conscious of it or not. You know, I wasn't conscious I was going to meet you, but I was listening to some guidance.
yeah.
And yeah, there's you play a part in that as well. It's not just from my side.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important thing for you to be, for people to take heed of, is that sometimes things happen, and I'll just give an example of something. There's a product that I was sort of looking at, but I didn't want to invest in it because it's quite a lot of money. And I said to this person who sort of introduced me to it or whatever, look, let me just try it through you. It's just, let's say it's some tablets or whatever. So let me just buy some through you. I don't want to have to sign up and subscribe and you get a year's supply or whatever. Let me just try this out because I've tried a lot of things that don't always work. And this person said, no, you've either got to, you're either in or you're out. So I said, okay, I'll leave it at that. And it happened again. And I got actually kind of annoyed about it. It's like, listen, man, I want you to help me, I don't want to go and spend a whole heap of money and find this that I've wasted my money. Just let me, if it works for me, I'm gonna use it. So about the second time it happened, and then I had someone else that offered to me, and they blocked that as well. And of course, in my third dimensional sense, I got quite agitated about it, and I'd say like annoyed. Let's put it that way. And it's over a period of time. And a month or two ago, another friend of mine who also is in the same kind of thing got hold of me and said, listen, man, my son's not well. What I'll do is I'll do a swap with you. I'll do some healings with you to the value of this thing. I said, I'd like to try it, but I don't want to jump in boots and all. I want to just give it a try. So I said, okay, what I'll do, I'll give you some of mine, and I'll exchange it for some healing for my son. And I did a healing for his son, and it was like a miraculous healing, like mind blowing. Like, wow, man, that's just unbelievable. So it made me realize, mate, if that person hadn't pissed me off, I wouldn't have got to that where I needed to be. I needed to be at that time with that person, with that product, whatever we call it, 6 months later, whatever it is, at that time, that to help that person. So the other thing we need to realize when things are not going our way, when you feel like someone's blocking us, when someone keeps saying no, 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 man, I'm annoyed, It's like, no, that's spirit just giving you the right guidance. I've now done a few healings for this youngster, and it's like, wow, man, that if that person helped me in the beginning, I may not have gone down that path, So it's a reminder, those things that happen with us meeting, we really need to be trusting in all things, even when they're not going our way. Trust that there's a reason for it. There's a reason why spirit's blocking something for you. And so that's a really important point. But this I don't know whether you're able to see this key of yours. I'm not sure if you're better.
Oh, you disappeared, but
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know if
if
you.
you put it in front of you,
Well,
yeah.
I got it in front of me, but you can't see it.
No, I can't see anything. It's you've vanished. That's how awesome it is. You've gone to
Yeah,
another
it doesn't matter.
dimension.
Let me anyway.
The thing is this podcast is mostly audio, so our listeners aren't gonna
That won't see stuff.
see it anyway. So maybe that's also why.
That's all right. Well, that explains that. So, like with the keys and what we spoke about, how we change in the world, and what I've come to realize is that we're all interconnected, and everything is interconnected. So, like this key that you've given me, when I first looked at it, I could see the geometry in it, which is the sacred flower. The sacred flower is one thing, but I think we all know that the sacred geometry. Not that this is necessarily specifically that, but I could see the kind of the geometry in it and the lines and the Aboriginal work in it. And I said, man, my Aboriginal guide is calling me, because before I left on that Sunday morning, my Aboriginal guide came to me and said, you need to take this crystal, which I got, which she's connected to. You need to take it with you. And I left it at home, but she was just letting me know that something from her Aboriginal connection would come up, and it did through you. And this crystal that I have, and this key of yours is connecting the ley lines, and specifically we spoke about the song lines. Because a lot of the Aboriginal people, Native American people, they didn't write their stuff down. They did it in song and stories. They told their history and all those things in stories and in songs. And we are creating through those song lines and ley lines, wherever we might be, we are bringing about that shift to the whole planet. So what we're doing here tonight with this, what you've done in your art, what you and I are doing here, we are sending out a frequency into those song lines and ley lines that go around the entire planet, and create healing energy that brings about change. And when we all start to do that, it's going to come pretty quickly.
Start hearing the songs.
Yeah.
The true original sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, when you were sharing that, I was getting the tingles, and I was getting visions, and I could actually see it before you mentioned it going across the globe. I could see it going across the globe.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful, and also it reminded me of Waitaha, which is more people that were here before the Māori people of
Yeah.
Aotearoa, New Zealand, and they also shared with song. They held their
Yeah.
knowledge through song, and Atlantis, it's said to be like that as well.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful how, sacred and deep that is, and how, we're coming full circle. That's what I like about that code as well. It's got a lot of full circles in it, interlinked, and it tells that story that's where I feel we're coming back to, even though we're moving forward and we're into a whole new earth way of being, and we haven't been here before and it's all new. It's still those traditional ways. So it's like the ancient New Earth. A friend of mine, that's what she calls it, and
Yeah.
yeah, that simplicity, stripping it all back and just getting back in touch with ourselves and nature and listening to those songs and those sounds and
Yeah.
those geometries.
Yeah. And I've had the message, and you of a similar age, but younger than me, you might remember the movies of Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that Back to the Future. It's been a very strong message for me for a very long time. We need to go back to the future. And as I said, the future is going to be futuristic. We're going to be floating around in cars won't be cars. We'll just teleport from one place to another. Cities will be probably just floating above the earth, and we can just decide we want to move to somewhere else, and we'll just kind of just move the whole city down to there and have that view for that day or that week or that year or whatever. But we need to go back to the future in terms of back to the old ways of and I use the native people and we're all native from somewhere. I'm of probably Celtic descent, but we've been dispersed around the planet. So we're not always as in touch with our roots as some of the native people in their own countries. But we need to go back to the future. We need to go back to the old ways of looking after each other, of community. The young people go hunting and that for the old people that can't, and all that stuff, because we've lost all of that. I've just watched a few movies recently since I was with you on the Native Americans in particular, because I have a very strong connection to the Native Americans. My guide is a Native American, and Aboriginals as well, but Native American have a very strong connection. And there's been some horrific things that have happened to people, and that's Maoris in this country, Aborigines, Native Americans, African tribes, all around the world. There's been some horrific things that have happened. Just watching one of the movies, how they separate the kids, Red Indian kids, from their families and whatever, and that happened all around the world. Terrible things. But we can't go back to that. We've got to let go of that, and that's one of the hardest things, is going back to the old ways of community and looking after each other. But we can't dig up the past. We've kind of, not to say who's wrong, who's right, whatever. We've all done bad stuff in our lineage somewhere, in our families, whatever. It's part of the nature of how this third dimensional earth has been. It's kind of survival of the fittest, and we've done stuff we shouldn't do. But we need to go back. And I've seen this thing where you better go, use the Native American or Maoris as an example here. You better go back in time, in a sense, and live that Maori culture with them, but in the old ways. No fighting, no, just peace and love and all the good stuff, And then you could go somewhere else and go to America and have a Red Indian experience, whatever it may be. So that Back to the Future is really important because it's back to the old ways, but it'll be in a futuristic, futuristic place. So we'll have cities just floating around. This literally be floating around. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, yeah, and I also feel sorry that that back part also incorporates the ancient the higher dimensional civilizations like ancient Egypt or Atlantis, Lemurian times, and how we
Yeah,
worked with energy then and with each other, and we're bringing those, we're going into remembrance of bringing those back
yeah,
on, and yet even though they're back, when we bring them to this now, it'll be different as well. You know, it'll be a whole new way of using those same kind of abilities and communing with ourselves, each other, and Mother Earth.
yeah. I was just about to write down junk DNA. I was just writing it down because I wasn't sure how long you're going to talk for, but like they talk about that we have junk DNA. They talk about DNA within our DNA that's not part of us and it's just junk. You could cut it out and throw it away. No, that's all the magic stuff, right?
Exactly.
So I've done some work with Thoth recently. Someone, Judy Satori, you may have heard of her or know of her. Judy Satori,
Yep.
New Zealand lady, and she met up with me at a spiritual thing here and said, you were a student of Thoth. She was talking to me, so Thoth is here, and he says, you were a student of his, and there's a lot of knowledge that you need to impart from what you've learned there. And I've been following a bit of that. Now, Thoth, I didn't know much about him at all. Had the Anunnaki were coming, and he hid those powers of ours in our DNA, because he knew if he scribed it down anywhere or did anything, they would just change it, as they have with religion. They would change it to suit themselves, and he hid it in our DNA before they came here because they were going to change us, which they did do, and it's hidden in our DNA, and it's a time now for us to start remembering, and sound and frequency vibration is a big part of waking that back up again. So through frequency vibration and the healing that we do, as you know, you put your hand on, the heat comes from your hand, but it's a frequency, it's a vibration through us, whatever frequency it needs to be to connect to, if it's cancer, whatever, it would have a certain frequency to help with that. To pull muscle, it would be something different. And we're going to connect back through frequency, sound, vibration. I spoke about the song lines, the ley lines, that music stuff. We're going to connect back to some of that DNA of ours and start remembering who we are. And who we are is, we are part of God. Everything is within us. Everything is within us, nothing that we
Yes.
can't do. But of course, that's divine. It's the Christ consciousness that's divinely good.
And I feel we all have our own sound signature, that we come in here with to sing, and when we're, I guess, in the embodiment of that, that's basically when we're really turned on our gifts and sharing, what we really come here to do, because that's like our mastery. And I do wonder, like, I'm not totally clear on it, but I wondered if we had a soul sound and it changed as our evolution changed, or whether we had just that one, and when we got to a certain frequency, then it came on board, and that was our one. I was wondering if you have any idea on that.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, but as I say, I think we're going to get to a point where we're going to get that sound frequency and vibration where we will change and people will change. Some might be a bit slower to connect it and come to it, but it'll that vibration, that frequency, as you say, maybe a frequency, that will just bring us back to that place of knowing where gravity and all those kind of things, the zero points, energy is, everything is possible. Tesla, who was the most genius guy Einstein was clever, but Tesla, man, he did a lot of stuff. He was the most underrated guy I think that's come to this planet. He really had a lot of amazing things that he was able to do. But of course, it seems like he had a good heart. He wanted to do these things for nothing. It doesn't work with the guys that want to do things for money, you know. So he invented free electricity. And of course, they said, mate, you're fired, you know, we don't want you here. You're not going to earn the company any money. So we don't need clever guys like you know, you want to give all this stuff away. We want things that we can make money out of, you know. So he was a brilliant guy, you know, and
Yes,
I think
yeah.
some of that stuff will come back, you know. He
Oh,
was
oh, for
strong.
sure. And beyond, like free energy is off
Yeah,
the charts when it does fully come on board,
yeah,
like at the moment, we've got electricity cars, but they're not caring for the environment at all. They're less of a footprint than carbon cars, petrol cars, but that's definitely not environmental friendly, and they're definitely not the answer.
yeah,
But we're still in that 3D world where people need to keep producing, and we're into consuming a lot, and all that that's still around. So we're still in a process for these energies to come on board fully, but they're definitely there, and some
yeah.
people are accessing them now, and yeah, I mean it's going to be incredible.
I think before 2030, we will have 0 point technology. It's here already. It's here. It's been here for a very long time. It's just they don't want to use it. But by
Yes,
2030, we'll probably have the 0 point technology where we'll know about it. And those are the kind of things we said from 2030 where we'll have peace on earth. It's like from there, those things will start to develop because it's a process. So if you take something like the hydrogen cars, their motors, they take in hydrogen and bring out the cleanest air and water. But of course, hydrogen, so you're not going to make money like you do out of petrol and diesel, you know. So it's a process of getting there.
mm,
Elon Musk, who's another brilliant mind, whether you like him, don't like him, whatever, he's a brilliantly clever guy. With his cars, his Tesla, he's now invented whatever you call it, a motor. I can't remember, like it's 70 times more efficient. So it uses far less So you're talking about it's not it has a carbon footprint as well, obviously the batteries and whatever, but he's now come with these motors that are much more efficient than anything else he's had before. Like I can't 70% more efficient, you know. And so a car will be, instead of doing 500 kilometers on a charger, is not going to be able to do 2,000 kilometers or whatever. So he's already, because money is not his big thing. He's
mm.
the richest guy in the world, so he's not all about money. He's about using his brain to develop stuff, and I mean, he's done some amazing things. But that's the kind of thing where a guy like him will bring about something electric where it's much more efficient, and eventually get so efficient that it's like there's hardly any, there's hardly any footprint at all. So there are people that will come with that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, we're definitely, move into a place where we're not putting a footprint on the planet at all with how we move around. And, eventually I feel we'll just be teleporting and
Yeah,
telepathic
yeah,
and talking in holograms.
absolutely. Yeah, it'll be completely real. You kind of took the words
Yes.
out of my mouth. I was going to say we'll just teleport. Like I've used Musk again. He wants to go to Mars by whatever year. By the time he gets to Mars, let's take it 2050, we'll be teleporting there. He would have wasted all that money, spending like I don't know billions of dollars on SpaceX or whatever and getting rockets to go out there, mate. And you and I'll be saying, mate, we'll see you there. We're leaving now. We'll be there instantly. And when you get here in like a
We'll be
month's time,
waiting for you. We'll have the
2 months' time,
champagne.
they are floating down through space and whatever. We'll be sitting there, as you say, drinking champagne and orange juice.
We'll probably be looking younger than when we left as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We will be the two little naughty little boys running around there, yeah, playing the fool. So things are definitely coming really quickly. I think they're kind of teleporting, and that stuff will come. And like you want to be with your family. I'm from a family of 6 kids. I've got a brother in Canada, a brother in America, a sister in France, me in New Zealand, and my other 2 siblings in South Africa. We spread all over, and obviously there's family all over. We'll be able to get, like you say, where you want to have a family meeting, whatever. We'll literally just sit down where I'm here, and it'll be like we're in the same room. We'll just be there as if you're there. Be no different. You'll be able to have all those conversations and use holographic, but it won't just be holographic. It will be real, if you know what I mean. You'll
Yeah,
just
yeah, for sure. But when I say holographic, holograms, I feel like for myself, when someone asks me a question about something, I can feel the energetics of the answer, and
yeah,
I struggle to find the words. And sometimes I know that's more to do with some limiting beliefs, but there's other times where the amount of information and what I can sense, there isn't really words to honor it.
yeah,
And yet I have this knowing that I can put it in a hologram,
yeah.
all that information, I can just intend it to be so and then send it to someone and they receive it.
They receive
And
it. Yeah,
that's the form of communication.
yeah,
And that can be in the real. We can be sitting right in front of each other. We don't have to be somewhere else.
yeah, yeah. Words often don't express things, as you say, like you'd like to. And that's another thing that part of what Thoth was saying, or it's come to me as well, was that he was known as the scribe and he wrote a lot of things down. Um, but what he was saying, it's not about the letters like we look at the hieroglyphics and whatever and try and decipher them. It's not about the word. It's about the thought. That's exactly what you were saying. So the word is just something written on a stone, but it's the thought, and that whole hologram. That one word can be a hologram for you, like you're saying, can be a whole story in a little, it can be a whole book in that one word.
Yes.
In your mind, you're saying a word, but it could be a whole story. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying. So what he was saying is not about the word. It's not about the
Hmm.
written word. It's about the emotion and the thought and the feeling behind it. And that's
Hmm.
exactly what you're saying. You would have that. You wouldn't be this. You're giving this one word as an explanation, but that's not explaining it. Whereas you'd be able to send a whole hologram to that guy, like a download, a couple of terabytes or whatever. It's one word, and boom, it's a whole story,
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, totally, totally,
yeah,
totally.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
my Qigong teacher, my original Qigong teacher, he would just say a sentence, any sentence, whatever you want to, and I'll talk to you about it for a day,
Yeah,
and because he could just tap into that,
yeah,
and yeah, and I'd go well, but not well, at the same time. It would be like, mm-hmm, yeah, for sure, I can see that.
yeah. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming, man. Like you say, you're able to envision already. In that, I get which I can't say I can see it, but I get the concept of it. It's
Mm.
beyond understanding at the moment, but all that stuff's coming.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a bit like the drawing as well, like how I said to you, I don't often get a name for it. Sometimes I do, certain ones for a specific reason and I get a lot of information, but for most of them, not a lot. And I'm comfortable with that because they speak to different people differently, they hold so much information, but they'll speak to you at the frequency you are at because you can't go beyond that frequency unless you raise your frequency to a different higher frequency. And then you can get that information. So depending on who's looking at it, and I have people, when I post them on Facebook, they'll say, "Oh, wow, this is that and that and that. And it was just what I needed to hear." And then someone else will say exactly the same thing, but they're talking about totally different things that
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
experiencing from it, and I
yeah,
love that. I just
yeah.
absolutely love that.
Yeah, and as you said, that's really what we need to do is just allow it to be what it needs to be for that person. Um, Often in my healings, I'll get messages for people, and I may not understand them myself, or I see a message. I get a message in a certain way. Like my guide says, a Native American, so he may show me something in a Red Indian sense or an American sense, of the countryside and whatever, and give me a message. When I then relate to that person, they get the message completely, but they see it differently. Or they may have seen it, they may have seen it, say, well, what you're explaining is exactly what I was, just one is a Red Indian that's explained it, and the other person is a Maori, let's say, that's explained it. It's just the story's
Mm,
the same. It's just how that person perceives it or interprets it. I've interpreted a certain way through my guide, and your interpretation through your guide is different, but the message is the same.
hmm
And that's the beauty of where we're going to, where we can all experience things how we need to experience it, not as we've been taught through schooling and everything else. You need to do it this way. So I'm ADD, ADHD, dyslexic, OCD, conceptual thinker. So school wasn't the right place for me to be learning stuff or whatever, because my brain just thinks differently, you know. But of course, they tried to force me into this box of what I need to learn, and I didn't really fit into that mold, and ended up in trouble a lot of the time, you know. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
remember I needed extra maths lessons. I went to this guy who'd retired maths teacher, you know, really good teacher and whatever, and he gave me a thing and said, "Give me the answer." So he'd give me something to work out. I'd work it out and give him the answer. So the answer's correct. Now tell me, how did you get there? Now, because I felt embarrassed, whatever you call it, I wasn't following the traditional way of doing things. I didn't want to explain how I'd seen it, how I'd worked it out, because I'm going to be in trouble, you know. I got the answer, but because it wasn't the traditional way of you supposed to do it, I got into trouble because I didn't write down the steps of what it is. I mean, how do I know the answer? I mean, he'd give me something and I had to work it, I work it in my head and come up with an answer. And it was the correct answer, but it wasn't in the way that they wanted me to put it out, you know. And what I realize now, so it was difficult for me going through school and whatever and being different in all sorts of ways, you know. And dyslexia still sits with me now. When I write things down and I'm writing Jacob and I'm already on the D for Dodds when I've written the J, you know. It's like my brain gets ahead of me. But I realize now that it's really helped me in this work that I'm doing, particularly the spiritual work,
Mm-hmm.
of being completely open-minded and seeing things in a completely different way. I realize it's actually a gift. I'm able to do what I do in my healing and see some of the things I see in that, because I see things differently to other people. I don't go in a linear fashion, step one, step two, step three. I go step one, step three, 8, 10, I'm there. It's a different way of thinking. So I'm able to use that in my healing to get to the end result quite quickly.
Yeah.
And realize, as much as it's been, I use the word, a handicap for me in the normal worldly sense, you know, of what we expected to do. It's actually a gift.
Yes, totally. And it shows how special and beautiful you are, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As
well,
is everybody in their own way, you know.
yes, yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I can relate to those things as well. I mean, I wasn't diagnosed with anything, but I didn't get what I was getting told, even from, the time I could start talking. I started asking questions, like, what does that mean? Why does it work that way? And got told off. But yeah, also working things out. Like I did mathematics with calculus. I stayed at school to the end, even though my friends left. And I was surfing. I was hardly ever going to school. And then the principal said, "Look, you haven't been to class for 3 months, and you've got an exam coming up. You have to go to it." And I was like, okay. And I went to it and I did really well in the exams
Yeah.
because it was just all there, like yeah, it wasn't, I didn't learn that way. And even when working in the aluminium trade, like I remember there was this window and the guy measured it was like a rose bay. So it's like a arch, a semicircle.
Yeah.
And I made it and we took it on site and went to put it in the hole and it didn't fit, and it was all safety glass and made of sections. So it
Oh,
was like a major because it all has to be
yeah.
cut down. And on the way back, I was thinking about it and I just fell into it and I just went, this is way before I was on my conscious path as such. We're always on a conscious path, but not conscious of it. And I just realized there was a way to do it that was really simple. And I just said to my boss, I went to explain to him and I said, I can't tell you what I'm going to do. You just have to trust that I know what I'm doing. And it took me like half an hour and I didn't have to change anything. I just cut one part in the middle and the glass all remained the same size. The whole thing basically stayed together. I just cut that down the guts and pulled it in two pieces and changed it, and I just could see how that could work. And I went back, and within like 2 hours of driving there and back, and put it in the hole, and it fitted perfectly.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
saved the boss heaps of money, but it wasn't something that I could tell him that I
yeah,
knew how it would work.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we see things differently to other people, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And everybody has their gifts in different ways, you know. As I didn't know that I was ADD and all those things. I only realized that now, you know. When I was a
Mm.
student, we didn't have any of those labels, you know. But I realized that when I look at things now, how they um, categorize people, I think, yeah, I can understand how I fit into that category.
Yeah, and I find it interesting because, that helps in some ways, but it also doesn't because it's not really actually what's happening. The medical terminology of it gives some understanding, but I feel it helps other people than it helps the person that's been given that label, and I've
Yeah,
worked with what we call special needs youths and adults and traumatic brain injury people and yeah, they're incredible. And
yeah,
I've got a friend who's bipolar, and like he was amazing, and he was in a really good space when we're hanging out, and he just said it's just a spiritual crisis. That's all it is, actually, what we're all experiencing.
yeah,
I'm like, wow, yeah, that's a beautiful terminology. And super amazing beings that have such difficulty in everyday life and put into all sorts of things. But when they're given that opportunity to be seen and express themselves, yeah, it's fascinating. Like I was a golf coach and I had two guys and they were really different. One was really slow and couldn't hit the ball very far, and the other guy was fast, fast, fast and could whack it really well. And I had to coach them together. And I was a golfer, but I didn't teach them anything about golf. I didn't show them any techniques or
yeah,
anything. I just watched them as a person and how they can relate to life and being out there and being in a place where they could hit the ball well. And then that fed them their self-esteem and just the excitement of it. And they both excelled and won tournaments and went further on. And yeah, it was just beautiful to observe because
yeah,
they were teaching me a lot while I was, being their coach. They were just teaching me huge amounts.
yeah. Yeah, and you spoke about younger people, and there's so many kids coming into this world now that are really that don't fit in and are completely they're just completely different, man. But they need to be here with that mindset
Sure.
that they have for the things that are coming. And I've had this, I use this as a prophecy, whatever you want to call it, probably 15 years, 10, 15 years ago. I said there will be jobs that children will do that we can't even comprehend at this stage. You know, there'll be jobs that certain kids will do that are not even they're not even on the job spectrum at the moment. And you know, when you and I grew up, there were certain things you either became a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or a plumber or electrician. They were kind of like, you know, worked on the railways or whatever. There were slots for everything, you know. And
Hmm.
then computers came in, and okay, you'd be a computer program or whatever, so that widened it up a little bit. But the jobs that people have been doing have been quite set for a long, long time, you know. And now suddenly it's got to where, man, there are people coming in and doing jobs that hadn't even been thought. I had that prophecy, and we take, and I bring up sort of the American scenario again, and just Elon Musk with this Doge, where those guys are going crazy because you've got these 19 and 20-year-old kids or whatever, and they're getting into these computer things and doing stuff that no one else can do. They're kids, you know. So it's
Yeah.
a job that no one's had even thought about before, you know. But you need to get into this massive database of stuff and try and find stuff and whatever it may be. And they're not using guys that are 65 years old that have had 40 years worth of computer experience and whatever. These guys are kids, man. I can't remember, one of them's like 18, 19 years old. And he's
Hmm.
finding out stuff that clever guys that have been in the industry for a long time can't do. It's kind of, and there's going to be a lot of jobs like that, not that specifically, but you know what I mean, where we won't even afford a job like that. And young people will be doing them because their minds are just they're different, you know. They're able
Yeah,
to
they're super advanced,
yeah.
and
Like
they know who they truly are.
yeah,
That's
like
the
you
big
could
thing
see that
about them.
window, you could see that window fit in. You looked at it and you could see how that fits in. And the same
Mm.
way they see these other problems that are not physical problems in a way that they're able to see it, you know. Yeah, Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a beautiful thing that you bring up because I feel we need to really get a lot of schooling environments for these incredible beings that are going to keep on coming through, that
Yeah,
we make sure that they stay in a supportive environment,
yeah,
because they're going to be hypersensitive and they're going to need nature and yeah, like, aware people around them
yeah,
and yeah, to keep them because they're our teachers.
yeah. I think fortunately a lot of them are coming along. Like if we take the Maori culture here, the grandmothers often will look after a child, and not necessarily just like they would before, just look after the child almost on its own, but even now they'll be there for that guidance. So the grandmothers and some of those older people had a knowing when a child has a special gift, and
Mm,
they would support them in that. Um,
yes.
and yeah, it's the same thing where there are people out there, may not, the parents themselves may not be open to it, but there's someone in the family, a grandmother, someone that's just got that guidance for that kid. That's there for them. I think we are finding that a lot of those children are supported in some way,
Mm,
part of them coming in here.
yeah, for sure. Oh, beautiful. So, I feel maybe we're kind of at a place on divine timing and spirit time and everything
Yeah, yeah.
that we've kind of roll into finishing up.
Yeah.
And is there anything you'd just like to share to the listeners to finish up on?
Yeah, Jacob, as man, I'm a healer. That's my main thing. And obviously, we've had a lot of medical stuff going on, and there's a lot of healing that can come through alternative healers like us. But the big thing that people need to know is that the light's coming. Nothing can stop it. It's coming, and we are going to get to a higher dimension ourselves fairly soon, where we'll be able to change all that stuff, and it will be a bit of a process, as I said. It's not just going to be like like overnight that suddenly the whole world is at peace and everything's sorted out. It can be like that, but it'll be a process, and each and every one of us has our part to play in that. And none of us is any more significant than the other. Doesn't matter who it is. Every one of us has a part to play and send out that song into that ley line, into that energetic field. If you're just sending out love from your heart, just to the world, even if you don't know who it's to, you are changing the world. So each and every one of us that has a positive, energetic feeling and an unconditional love from our hearts and our souls to bring about change, we will create the change. Nothing can stop it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, brother. It's been a
Yeah,
real blessing to have you on, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed our conversation and sharings and listening to your wonderful insights and wisdom for us all to yeah explore and see what things sparks us. Like always for our listeners, take what resonates, leave the rest.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, thank you, Jacob, for what you're doing. You're obviously spending the time to get these things out and get the messages out to people. I appreciate your work. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
We'll connect up again soon, I'm sure.
Yes, for sure. Totally. That's how it happens, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. May you journey well, and we'll catch you next time here on Earth Body Consciousness. Go well.